Viralnater presents, at 75, Carly Simon finally confirms who You're So Vain was written about. Let's start by singing the famous line, "You're so vain, you probably think this song is about you." We'll go ahead and start singing now that that's out of the way. She became famous in the early 1970s, and her popular song, "You're So Vain," from 1972 was a big hit. The exciting story behind the song was more interesting than the catchy tune itself. No one knew who she wrote the song about, but fans thought about it for years. Simon said that the song was about 3 different people, but she only said which one it was about. Who were the other 2? This book is a great mystery for anyone who likes them. In her time, Simon met a lot of singers and stars and even dated some of them. We're going to name all the people the song might have been about. There are some people of interest that we could have called suspects when the song first came out. More details can be found in Simon's 2015 autobiography, Boys in the Trees. Find out what Carly thinks about these guys. Suspect number 1, Mick Jagger. In the 1970s, Mick Jagger added his singing to the background of You're So Vain without being recognized. It was clear that the song was about him, and fans started guessing right away that it was. Simon said in 1983, though, that the song was not about the Rolling Stone. 10 years later, in 1993, Angie Bowie started the stories all over again when she said she was the wife of a close friend that was named in the song. She told him that she was obsessed with him for a long time. Jagger's wife Bianca supposedly tried to break up Simon and James Taylor before they got married. It said that she called Taylor the night before the wedding and told him not to marry Simon because she was having an affair. Suspect number 2, James Taylor. On November 3, 1972, Simon got married to James Taylor. That same year, the song came out. Naturally, people thought that Taylor was the theme of the song. That was quickly put to rest by Simon, though. Simon told Rolling Stone magazine in 1972, not long after the song came out, "It's not James." She went on to say, "James thought it might be about him because he's very vain. He's not. He just took a jet up to Nova Scotia after I wrote the song, which was a bad idea. He was saved by the fact that it wasn't a Lear. Taylor is probably not the guy she's talking about in the song, but he seems to think otherwise." Suspect number 3, David Bowie. You can hear the name David whispered backward about 2.5 minutes into the 2010 version of the You're So Vain music video. Who has time to play these songs backward? Fans who were looking into it said this was a very important tip. Some people quickly thought that David Bowie might be the subject. He was already a suspect before the song came out. But the theories that the song was about him came back after Simon talked about her ex-lover in an interview. She told him, "I'm just going to tell you this. The answer is on the new You're So Vain. The answer to the puzzle is a small whisper." Simon was having fun with the whole thing. So, was it Bowie? Suspect number 4, David Cassidy. She might have been talking about David Bowie, but that's not the only David she could have been talking about. Simon spoke about the man and gave a tip about who he is. The letters A, E, and R were in his name, she said. A lot of people thought Simon was talking about teen hero David Cassidy after the song came out. Your first thought might be, but his name doesn't have an E or an R. Well, his full name is David Bruce Cassidy. The singer, actor, and musician was best known for his role as Keith Partridge in the Partridge Family. At the time, there were a lot of other possible suspects. After Simon's statement, Cassidy became more likely to be charged. He seems to have everything so far. Suspect number 5, Cat Stevens. Simon fell in love with Cat Stevens when she was just starting as a singer. Stevens is a British singer who plays rock, folk, and pop songs. Over time, he became known for making Islamic music. Stevens saw the singer for the first time at the Troubadour, where he was getting ready for his show in the United States. He was a possible suspect from the start because they dated on and off for about 7 months. Fans thought You're So Vain might have been an answer because Stevens wrote the song Sweet Scarlet about Carly Simon. He gave her the idea for the song Anticipation, also known as the catch-up song, so he seems like a likely choice. Suspect number 6, David Geffen. Yes, there's another David. The person Simon might have been talking about in 2010 is David Geffen. The wealthy record producer May not be the first person you think of as a suspect, though, since he's openly gay, but his name comes up a lot when people talk about the secret behind You're So Vain. Howard Stern said in May 2014 that Simon whispered 3 guys in her ear, which was about the song. One of the names he thought was Warren Beatty, and the other was David Geffen, but he forgot. Simon confirmed that Warren was one of the guys in black, but there are 2 more. Could it be she told Stern the truth and he just forgot? Suspect number 7, Warren Beatty. They went out together for a short time in the 1970s. He thought the song was about him, which is funny when you think about what the words say. He may have even thanked the artist. That year he said, "Let's be honest, the song's about me." He was only partly wrong, though. There was an interview with People magazine where Carly said that the second line is about Warren. It only took her 43 years, but as the saying goes, better late than never. Which 2 other people does she mean when she talks about culprits? Let's look for something else. Suspect number 8, Dan Armstrong. Guitarist Dan Armstrong is another person who might be behind Simon's song. They were in a relationship that ended in 1971. Since she wrote a song about Armstrong called My Fling, why not use him in another one? Sheila Weller, the author, thinks so. Weller wrote a book in 2008 called Girls Like Us about their affair and said that the song might be about him. Remember the hint we talked about before? Carly said that one of the guys she was talking about has named him E, A, and R. The clue made a lot of people think of David Cassidy, but Dan's full name is Daniel Kent Armstrong, which makes him another good candidate. Suspect number 9, Sean Connery. Simon was 20 years old when she met Sean Connery, who played James Bond. She and her sister, Lucy, were on a boat going from England to New York. Sending the actor a note that said they were not ordinary fans and that their dad started Simon & Schuster was an attempt to get his attention. The plan seemed to work because Connery called to say he would be down in 20 minutes. Fans didn't rule him out because they knew each other. This is the 3rd time in Connery's name that the letters E, A, and R have been used. This hint didn't help narrow things down. Suspect number 10, Marvin Gaye. Simon used to work as a director on a TV comedy show before she became a single act. Marvin Gaye showed up on the show, and Simon was told to check his room to see if he needed anything. He wasn't wearing a shirt when she found him. Afterward, she said, "He told me he wanted to see something and asked if I would mind sticking out my tongue." She went on to say, "Marvin lunged at my face, grabbed my tongue, and started sucking it. Well, that was quite an encounter. I got out without hurting anything. It's clear why he was put in the list of suspects. Too many things could happen, though, so we can't be sure." Suspect number 11, Jack Nicholson. He had spent the night at Simon's place and was now making business calls while sitting on her bed. She first thought he was trying to show how much he liked her. She was a little off, though. To the singer's surprise, he told her that he was seeing someone else and deeply feeling for her. Simon told her, "I like seeing you, and I'm glad you told me before I invited you to my wedding where you were the groom." Simon didn't care about Nicholson, but he did make her feel bad about herself. For such a short time together, it makes sense that she would write the song about him. Suspect number 12, Chris Christopherson. Simon and Christopherson spent a slam-dunk deranged month or so together after meeting in the LA music scene. She thought he was great at writing songs, and her favorite was "I've Gotta Have You." She only had good things to say about him at first, but after they flew together, she changed her mind. She put her head on Simon's shoulder as the plane took off because he was afraid of flying. Christopherson put his newspaper over his head like a tent and didn't want anything to do with the possibly sick or scared woman he had in his hands. The woman used to look up to him, so some people think that her sadness may have inspired the song. Suspect number 13, Bob Rafelson. Bob Rafelson is another possible person who's behind You're So Vain. There was a short relationship between Simon and the maker of 5 Easy Pieces. Since Rafelson was married at the time, they were only seeing each other, sometimes for a few weeks. Carly wrote, "He eventually told his brilliant, beautiful wife, Toby, about me during a karma cleansing session." Do you think the song could be about the director? Even though it doesn't seem likely, Simon said that the two other guys she's talking about don't know either. At this point, it could be anyone. They did sleep together at one point, so Simon may have written the song about him after he married his wife again. Suspect number 14, Terrence Malick. Terrence Malick is a well-known director who is also a bit of a mystery. No one ever saw him at the openings of his movies or talked about them in interviews. Another thing about Malick that you didn't know is that he had an affair with Carly Simon. Someone they both knew put them in touch while the director was writing a story for The New Yorker about Che Guevara. Simon said, "I listened carefully as he talked with a kind of fervent enthusiasm for Che that I secretly hoped he might have an iota for me too." She also said, "Still, Terry and I weren't the easiest fit." She doesn't seem too upset about it, but Malick became a suspect because of how they were together. A bit about the girl. The father of Carly Simon was Richard L. Simon, who helped to start the publishing company Simon & Schuster. She and her brothers had a unique childhood thanks to the successful business. She spent some time at her family's apartment in Greenwich Village and some time at their larger home in Stamford, Connecticut when she was younger. The family was often joined by famous people when they were at the Stamford house. Simon had a taste of fame before she became a singer. Well, the fame that you didn't earn. She met important people of the time like Charles Adams, Albert Einstein, and Eleanor Roosevelt. A Dodgers baseball player was her favorite famous person to hang out with. Bob Dylan tried to recruit her. The day before her 21st birthday, she got a call from Bob Dylan. He called to try to get her to sign with Grosscourt, whose management was also in charge of him. It was very important to him that she record "Baby, Let Me Follow You Down." He would have even written some of the words for her. Dylan mostly talked about how great Nashville was when he met Simon. He had just come back from recording Blonde on Blonde there. Simon didn't seem to care too much about making Dylan like him, which was strange. Her writing said, "Thank God he was stoned, so I didn't have to worry too much about how I looked." Bob Dylan actually rewrote the song. Dylan rewrote "Baby Let Me Follow You Down" for her in the end. Simon tried to record it with Albert Grossman, a director who wasn't named but whose identity could have been easily found with a little work. The meeting didn't go well anyway. The producer kept lowering the tune too much for her. It looked like the director knew what he was doing, and Simon thought she might be watched out for. She didn't hold back from writing what her idea was in her book. She says she can't prove it, but thinks it might have been payback for me not responding to their sexual advances. That was long before the Me Too movement. The charming Warren Beatty. It was known that Simon and Beatty were seeing each other. He was one of the three guys her hit song is about, which made it even worse. Even though she knew he was a player, she gave in to his advances because she found him charming and hard to resist. How'd he pick up women? He pulled out a piece of paper that had a list of the main loves of his life. Simon was pleased to see her name next to Catherine the Great and Marie Curie. It was strange that every time they stayed the night together, Beatty called the next day. He knew my mom, sisters, brother, grandmother, old boyfriends, and the streets where I lived 5 years ago. He rarely got lost because he had an amazing memory. Meeting James Taylor. He seemed both clean and dirty, she said. It was clear from the way he was lying on the floor that he was the center of something, the core of an apple, the center of attention. After they met, Taylor left with his girlfriend at the time, Joni Mitchell. Simon must have felt something because she remembers their meeting so clearly. The magic just didn't affect her. Taylor and Simon began dating later that same year. It was said that they spent a lot of time on his vineyard land. At the end of the road, there was a natural pond where Taylor liked to plant willow trees. He named the pond Carly's Bottom. Tension with Mick Jagger. As we already said, Mick Jagger was a big suspect in the guys who were involved with the song. We said that Jagger sang backwards vocals for the song, but that wasn't the only thing they did together. The singer said that when she met the Rolling Stone for the first time, she found him sexy. She added, "Of course I flirted with Mick, really, who wouldn't?" The singer went on to say that she felt electricity buzzing between them and that the stress reached a peak when they were recording You're So Vain. Did she cheat on Taylor? That was not all Simon did. As she wrote, "I wanted to touch his neck, but he was looking at my lips. The energy was rough and didn't try to hide its strength. Having sex would have calmed things down." Singer never said if she and Jagger completed their relationship, but we know that Bianca, his wife, had her thoughts. She even called Taylor the night before his wedding and told him she was cheating on him and that he shouldn't marry Simon. "That can't be true," James said. "It's not what you think. Carly told me. I believe in my future wife. I trust Carly," he said. But Jagger and Simon continued to date for years. He would even use a fake name to send flowers to her hotel. Moving on to Jim Hart. Taylor and his wife split up after 11 years of marriage and 2 children. After that, Simon married Jim Hart. They were together for 20 years. She didn't know that Hart was gay behind her back. He later said that the first time he went to her house, he was looking at Taylor, her ex-boyfriend, and couldn't take his eyes off the beautiful singer. Hart did come out in 2007, though. She woke up one morning and told him, "I think you might be gay." She wasn't afraid of it, she just wanted him to be honest. In his 2017 autobiography, Lucky Jim, he wrote about how troubled their marriage was. His friend, Simon, pushed him to write it, no matter what it showed. Jack Nicholson fling. Nicholson and Simon had a one-night stand, that much we know. He liked to call them Bugs, Artie the Garf, and Mick the Nick, and they were shooting Carnal Knowledge with him. Nicholson stayed at Carly Simon's place in New York for a few nights. After she made him coffee on their first night together, Nicholson came up with this catchy way to ask her out. After a short conversation, he asked me off the cuff, "Do you ever drink coffee in your bedroom? It looks like you didn't have to work too hard back then." We all know that their short-lived relationship ended when Nicholson fell in love with someone else he was sleeping with. A recent relationship. Before their nasty split-up, Simon and Taylor had 2 kids together, named Sally and Ben. Since they're both singers, I guess they have strong genes. In an interview in 2004, the singer said, "I would say our relationship is non-existent. There's no talk between them now. That's not how I want it to be." Simon began dating a doctor named Richard Kohler in 2008. They've been dating since 2006, even though he's 10 years younger than her. The couple was said to be living together in Martha's Vineyard in 2015. Clouds in my coffee. Another well-known line from You're So Vain is "clouds in my coffee." Because the song is so mysterious, Carly chose to explain what this line means. The singer said the song came from an airplane flight that I took with Billy Mermit, who was my friend and piano player at the time. She said, "As I got my coffee, there were clouds outside the window of the airplane, and you could see the reflection in the coffee. I asked Billy, 'Look at the clouds in your coffee.'" Now I know what was going on. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon.